Let's go now to summative assessment. This is what we call assessment of learning. And this usually occurs at the end of a particular unit. This is where the unit test comes in, long quizzes comes in, all right. So assessment of learning. The assessment of learning or summative assessment describes the standard reached by the students. Judgments made or derived from the summative assessment are usually for the benefit of people other than the learner. So, pagdating sa learner, ang halaga lang ng summative assessment para sa kanya ay yung grado niya. But other stakeholders of education might benefit from knowing the result of summative assessment. Who are these? Who are the stakeholders? Maybe the parents, maybe the barangay chair, maybe the superintendent, maybe the principal. All of these are stakeholders of education. They want to know what's really happening in the school. Okay? In terms of what the students can show about what they have learned. Especially, bakit ang mga barangay chair o barangay officials should be interested in knowing how the school is performing? Importante yon kasi, di ba, binibigyan kayo ng pera, meron kayong share, yung school board merong share dyan, ang school ninyo merong share sa pera ng barangay, sa pera ng municipality or city. Meron po, di ba? Okay, so interested silang makita, how are you doing? Kasi kung maganda ang performance mo, ba't hindi ka bibigyan ng pera, di ba? O kung hindi maganda ang performance mo at nangangailangan ka ng ganito, ganoon, hindi maganda ang performance mo dahil ganito, ganoon, ang pangangailangan mo, di pwede kang humingi. So, importante na alam nila kung ano ang mga nangyayari sa eskwelahan ninyo. And ang pinaka-indicator niyan ay ang performance ng mga bata. Alright. So, saan kinukuha yan? Doon yan sa result ng summative assessment. Summative assessment measures whether learners have met the content and performance standards. Sino nga ang nag-set nitong content and performance standards? Ang DepEd. Alright, baka kulelat ng eskwelahan ninyo. Then the principal has explaining to do. Tuktukan man kamukang principal ninyo. No? Alright. So, summative assessment also measures designed to assess how well students have learned and are able to apply, take note, able to apply their learning in different contexts. So, hindi lang yung natuto sila sa loob ng classroom. Kasi ang pinaka-importanting measure ng natutunan nila is kung paano nila ito ina-apply sa tunay na buhay. So, in real life, how are they able? No? To do this? Iyan lang. Tingnan natin, ha? Iyan lang. For example, iyan lang na pag-manage ng garbage. Alam na alam ng mga bata na kinakailangan mag-segregate ng garbage, etong mga papel dito, etong mga nabubulok dito, itong dito. Alam nila yan. But do they translate this to real life? Do they practice this? Pagdating mo sa eskwelahan, tatanungin, ano ba, nag-segregate kayo, etc. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yung ganito, okay. So, lalagay mo doon, very good. Is that really what's happened? So, importante na nakikita mo kung ano nga ang ginagawa nila sa loob ng kanilang bahay. Di ba? Kinakailangan mong magbahay-bahay. So, you want to see whether there is application of what they learn in the classroom. Sige. Nagugulayan kayo sa paaralan, di ba? Ano ang object natin? What is our objective? in having a gulayan sa paaralan? Di ba to show the students that they can do this, they can replicate this at home? O paano mo malalaman kung na-replicate yan sa bahay? Di pupuntahan mo. Di ba? Kasi kung magsasabi ka, sige nga, dala kayo dito ng bunga ng talong ninyo, etc. Oh, they can just easily buy. Just to show you na may talong sila. May sili sila. But if you go on to house, no? Makikita mo na in-apply nga nila. Pati ang composting, in-apply nila. Oh, di ba? Tuwa ka kung makita mo ang dami ng kanilang ani sa bahay dahil ang ganda ng kanong, etc. Tuwa mo na lang. No? So, yan ang tuwa na hindi mababayaran ng salapi. Makikita mo na ginagawa nila yung natutunan nila sa eskwelahan. Yan ang wala sa salary ninyo. Yan ang mafe-feel mo sa puso mo kung nakikita mong nagbago ang ugali ng mga estudyante dahil natuto sila sa iyo. Nag-leksyon ka kung ano ang kagandahan ng pagpunta sa eskwelahan ng maaga. Kasi ang dami ng mga late, etc. Nag-leksyon ka, 3 leksyon. Ano ang ibinunga ng 3 leksyon na yan? Okay. Kung after the 3 lessons, lahat sila ay pumupunta na ng maaga sa loob ng, wala nang nalilate dyan, then successful ka as a teacher. Yun po ang hindi natin mamimeasure ng ng test. Ng test, paper and pencil test. Performance test ang pwede dyan, Observation ang pwede dyan ng success of your teaching. Maliwanag po. Okay. So, again, summative assessment. Measures are designed to assess how well students have learned and are able to apply their learning in different contexts. Okay. Take note. Summative assessments are recorded. It's used to report on the learner's achievement. And results are reported to the learners. Karapatan nila yan to be informed about their grades. No? Results are reported to the parents and guardians. Results are reported to the principals, the school heads. Take note of this. Results are reported to the teachers who will receive the child in the next grade. Tinuturuan mo ay grade 4. Karapatan ng susunod na teacher ang makita ang kanilang, yung ginawa mong mga anecdotal records, observation records, aside from the grades that you have given your students. So, merong continuity sa pagtatala ng progreso ng mga bata. And kailangan din na ito ay ipakita natin sa mga guidance teachers. Hindi lang po doon sa mga batang may problema, kundi pati doon sa mga batang may exceptional talent para mabigyan po sila ng kaukulang tulong kung paano lalo pang mahahasa ang kanilang talento. So this is the role of summative assessment. Now, let's talk about learning standards. As I told you earlier, the content standards are already done for you by the DepEd curriculum makers. Yari na. I-implement nyo na lang. Okay. What are content standards? Okay, as you can see, content standards identify and set the essential knowledge and understanding that should be learned. By grade level siya. The DepEd set the minimum essentials. Maraming pwedeng pag-aralan sa science, sa math, etc. Kaya yan po ng mga pwedeng pag-aralan ay inano na natin, pinag-gradate na natin, No? Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. In a spiraling fashion. What do we mean by spiraling fashion? No? From the least difficult to the more complex. No? So we start with the easy to the most complex in a spiraling fashion, grade by grade. So, essential knowledge and understanding. You don't cram up a grade level with so many. Yun lang tinatawag natin na minimum essentials. Ito lang ang kaya for this grade. Pwedeng dagdagan, pwedeng bawasan, kaya lang pag binawasan mo, minimum standard pa rin ba yan? Pag dinagdagan mo naman ng sobra, baka hindi na kayanin ng mga estudyante. So we set what we call the minimum essentials for a grade. Content standards cover a specified scope of sequential topics within its learning strand, domain, theme, or component. As I said, this is already done by DepEd. So what shall we do? This is very important. Take it down sa notes ninyo. Are you ready with your notes? Take this down. You have to, how do you call that? Download. You have to download, or first of all, you have to select at least one subject in one grade level. For example, your major is AB English and you want to teach in senior high school. In senior high school, there is English in grade 11, there is English in grade 12. Select grade 11, grade 12. All right. After you shall have selected, then download the curriculum. For free naman yan, ha? Download the curriculum for English in grade 11. You need that for the next activity that we will do. Clear po? Ulit po, assignment, download the curriculum of whatever subject you have selected for whatever grade level you intend to teach. Kung math, management ngaya ako, madam, ano daw, ay pumili ka na. Ang management, anong ituturo mo? O pumili ka na kung anong gusto mong ituro. No? You will have to select only one course. Bakit kinakailangan ito? Kasi ito ang babasihan natin sa mga susunod na activities natin. Balik tayo sa content standards. The content standards answer the question, what should the learners know? That's clear enough. No? Ano ang dapat matutunan ng mga bata sa English 11? Whatever English that is. Right? Content standards. Let's go to performance standards. The performance standards describe the abilities and skills that learners are expected to demonstrate in relation to the content standards and integration of 21st century skills. I gave you an assignment. What is that? Curriculum. I-download ang curriculum sa subject na napili ninyo. Next assignment. Next assignment is you are going to list down all the 21st century skills. In other words, lahat ng mga bata na nag-aaral ay dapat natutunan itong tinatawag nating 21st century skills. Have a list of these when you come back. Oh, coming back. Just have a list of that. We will need that for our next lesson. Performance standards also describe the integration of knowledge, understanding, and skills. The integration of knowledge, understanding, and skills, and is expressed through creation, innovation, and adding value to products or performance during independent work or in collaboration with others. Okay. What, sabi natin, what can the students do with what they know? That is the intended learning outcome. Ulit, what can the students do with what they know? In other words, big ito sa component na tinatawag natin or objective category na application. Di ba? Ang cognitive domain, sabi, cognitive domain, natutunan ninyo ito sa ibang kurso ninyo, ay kinategorize ni Bloom into 6 na tinatawag niyang hierarchy of cognitive domain, starting with knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. That's the original Bloom's taxonomy of educational objective. The first two there, knowledge and then comprehension, are what we call low levels of cognition. From application up to evaluation is what we call high level of cognition. No? So we call the first two the lots, low order thinking skills, lots, and the upper one, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, the HOTS. Take note, HOTS, higher order thinking skills. Okay. The integration of the knowledge that you put in-input mong knowledge, understanding na nakuha nila, skills na na-acquire nila, in-integrate nila ito, dapat makita ito sa kanilang sariling creation. Okay. So the ultimate, the apex of the learning process is if the students can create something out of what they learn. Maliwanag po. Natuto sila mag-compost. So, dapat nakagawa sila ng compost pit na doon nilalagay nila ang compost, how do you call this? Yung nabubulok. No? And, dapat makita natin ito. Ginagawa nila para nagagamit nila sa kanilang pagtanim. Alright. Hindi lang sila nakagawa ng compost pit, nakagawa pa sila ng ng sako. Nilagyan ng compost. Tinaniman ng okra. That's creation. Alright. So, this is the highest level of cognition. According to, alright. Take note. Notebook ninyo. Uli. Si Bloom ay may ginawang what we call taxonomy of educational objectives. Sa cognition, sinabi ko na sa inyo, nandoon yung knowledge, comprehension, etc. up to evaluation. Sa DepEd, ang DepEd, gumamit sila ng modified na Bloom's taxonomy. Ito ang taxonomy na create ni Krathwohl and Anderson. Ito po ang ginagamit ngayon ng DepEd. Alright. Kung ito ay nasa notebook na ninyo dahil pinag-aralan nyo sa ibang klase, tingnan natin. No? At the lowest level of Anderson and Krathwohl's cognitive or hierarchy of cognition is, at the lowest level is recalling or remembering. equivalent to Bloom's knowledge. Okay? At the second level is understanding, equivalent to Bloom's comprehension. The third level, pareho sila. Ano yon? Application. The fourth level, pareho sila. Analyzing or analysis. The fifth level, magkaiba sila. In Bloom's taxonomy, ang fifth level is synthesis. In Anderson and Krathwohl's, ang fifth level ay evaluation. So, pinagpalit, no? Because the apex, ang pinakamataas na level ni Bloom ay evaluation, kay Krathwohl and Anderson, it's creating. Alright. Ang ginagamit po ng DepEd ay yung Krathwohl and Anderson. So, ulitin po natin, the highest level of cognition is when the students demonstrate that they can create something out of what they learned. Clear po? Okay. So, this has got to be spelled out in the what? Performance standards. Ulit po, ito po ay nasa DepEd na. Pero kung kayo po ay magtuturo sa college, kayo ay gagawa nito. Now, performance standards, para klaradong-klarado sa isip natin kung ano yan. Performance standards answer the following questions. First, what can the learners do with what they know? Paulit-ulit kong sinabi yan sa inyo, no? What can the learners do with what they know? Second, how well must learners show for their work? Standard siya, no? How well must learners show for their work? Criterion. Third, how well do learners use their learning or understanding in different situations? So, kung ang nagagawa lang ng mga estudyante ay yung ibinigay ninyo sa loob ng klase, halimbawa, problem sa mathematics, word problem sa mathematics, binigay mo na sa klase, inassign mo, assignment, binigay mo na sa klase, pinapasolve mo, nothing is new. It's not going to test the learner's understanding. However, if you are going to use another problem, especially contextual problem, in other words, within the experience of the child, localized, meaning naunawaan niya dahil nakikita niya sa local, sa tinitirahan niya o kung saan man siya nakatira. Yun ang nakikita niya, ginagawa, etc. It's localized. It's contextualized. Bagong problem. Then, you can measure the understanding of the students. Different situation. Ulit, kung na-apply ng mga bata ang natutunan nila sa loob ng classroom in a different situation, then you can say, you can rest assured that the students have learned. Palakpakan mo ang buhay mo. Natuto ang mga bata. Okay. Learning standards or performance standards also answer the question, how do learners apply their learning or understanding in real-life context? And explain ko na ito. And the next question, what tools and measures should learners use to demonstrate what they know? Ibig sabihin po ng number 5 na yan, dapat kasama po ang mga bata sa paggagawa ng evaluation tools. Paano imi-measure yung kanilang natutunan? Maliwanag po. Alright. In college, if this were a regular class, After orienting the students about the course, we normally discuss the grading system. We normally ask the students, halimbawa ako, ilan ba ang kaya mong gawin I'm teaching uh, readings in history. I'm asking them to read other than what is in the book. I'm asking them to read articles interesting to them. So, I ask them, ilan ang kaya mo sa buong semestre? If there are 54 hours, ilan ba ang kaya mo na basahin? At gawa ng summary. Kaya ma'am, pwedeng 5 sana. Ay, di ito man yan ako. Yan. So, they haggle. You set the standard with them. Kaya mi ngaya, madam, hanggang 10 sana. O, sige, 10. Basta maray. Uni ang mga quality na dapat ma-meet kan sa indong, how do you call this, summary ninyo and analysis. So, kasama ninyo ang mga estudyante sa pagbibigay ng evaluation tool o sa pagyayari ng evaluation tool na gagamitin nila sa pag-measure ng kanilang natutunan. Okay. The learning standards are different from what we call learning competencies. Ulitin ko po, learning standards na content at saka performance ay ginawa na ng DepEd. What about the learning competencies? Ginawa na rin yan ng DepEd. Nasa syllabus na yan ng bawat subject. No? What are learning competencies? These refer to the knowledge, understanding, skills, and attitudes that students need to demonstrate in every lesson and or learning activity. Every lesson. So kung ang content standards and performance standards ay sa buong kurso, ang learning competencies ay lesson by lesson, module by module. No? So from the bigger chunk of learning outcome, we narrowed that down to learning competencies. Okay. The learning standards in the curriculum reflect progressions of concept development from basic to complex, as exemplified in Anderson and Kraftwohl's cognitive process dimension. Binanggit ko na po ito. We have remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Okay? Cognitive process dimension according to Anderson and Kraftwohl. And this is what is being used by DepEd, not the Bloom's original cognitive domain. Okay. To better understand this, let's look at the different descriptors for each level of cognition. So we have here the cognitive process dimension, remembering. What are the words? What are the verbs that we can use? The word or words or verb that we can use for remembering. So we can say the learner can recall. Recollection is remembering. The learner can recall information and retrieve relevant knowledge from long-term memory. Okay? Narinig natin, nakalagay sa short-term memory natin, hindi naman nakarating sa long-term memory. What's the tendency? We forget. Di ba? So, lahat ng itinuro natin, sikapin natin na makarating sa tinatawag nating long-term memory. At pag nag-test ka, dapat ang mga bata ay nare-retrieve yan, nakukuha yan sa long-term memory. All right, so here are a few more words that we can use to test or evaluate remembering: to identify, to retrieve, recognize, duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, reproduce. When we make or formulate objectives, be sure that you can use this, no? Under the cognition level remembering. Identify, retrieve, recognize, duplicate, list, etc., etc. Name, enumerate. Okay. For understanding, a learner is said to have understood if the learner can construct meaning from oral, written, and graphic messages. Nagbigay ka ng graph. Ano yan? Graphic message. Nagbigay ka ng table. Ano yan? That's graphic message. Nagbigay ka ng picture. That's graphic message. You know? Can the student say something about the data in the table? If they can, and it's done correctly, then the student has understood. If you give them a poem to read and you ask the child, okay, paraphrase the first to the fourth stanza. If the student is able to do it, then he or she understood. If the child can classify this or that thing under appropriate heading, then the child has understood. In other words, if the student can show evidence, they can give meaning, they can interpret, etc., then they have understood. Okay, so what are some of these descriptors that we can use for understanding? As you can see, we have interpret, exemplify, classify, summarize, infer, compare, explain, paraphrase, discuss. Huwag naman lahat discuss, discuss, discuss. Wala na kang naisip na verb. So, vary the statement or vary the verbs that you use in formulating objectives. Let's go to the third, applying. From applying up to creating, ano na yan? High-order thinking skills. And our teaching and the manner of questioning that we do inside the classroom should target this higher level of thinking skills. The learner, if she has learned, truly learned what you have taught, then he should be able to apply. So the learner can use information to undertake a procedure in familiar situations or in a new way. Okay, it's easy enough to understand, you know? Applying to new situation or to familiar situations, something that they have learned. So what are the verbs that we can use? Execute, implement, demonstrate, dramatize, interpret, solve, use, illustrate, convert, discover. I don't think I need to illustrate this by example. You know how applying is done. No? I will see whether you have learned really by giving you an objective, well-formulated objective, and I'm going to ask you to classify these objectives under the appropriate cognitive process dimensions. We will do that later. Applying. Next is analyzing. In analyzing, the learner can distinguish between parts and determine how they relate to one another and to the overall structure and purpose. So imagine something, a whole is compartmentalized or divided into pieces for the student to be able to see what's going on in each piece, you know. So the child, I mean the learner, is analyzing a whole chopped into chunks. The learner can distinguish between parts and determine how they relate to one another and to the overall structure and purpose. And the verbs that we can use are differentiate, distinguish, compare, contrast, organize, outline, attribute, deconstruct, etc. The sixth level is evaluating, meaning the learner can make judgments and justify decisions, can choose and justify the choice. The verbs that we can use are coordinate, measure, detect, defend, judge, argue, debate, critique, appraise, evaluate, etc. And finally, at the apex of the hierarchy is creating. At this level, the learner can put elements together to form a functional whole, creating a new product or point of view. So it could be, the creation could be something that is tangible or something that is intangible. Like what? If a student can generalize from pieces of evidences, is form patterns and able to generalize something out of this pattern, out of these bits of information, then that is creation, which is intangible. Okay, if a student is able to, let's say, put a tune to lyrics of a poem, what has he created? A melody. Okay, is it something tangible? It is both intangible and tangible to my mind. If you can put this into notation, nakagawa ka ng score, musical score, then that is tangible. Okay. So, creation, music, art, nakakreate ka ng beautiful scenery. That's art, artistic creation. Now, this is the whole object of teaching. We should be able to bring the students up to that level, up to the highest level, creation. If you can do that, clap your hand to yourself. You have done a good job. That's the ultimate goal of teaching. Make our students productive by not copying but originating ideas. Oh well, maybe copying is also good. The Japanese have been very good at copying. There's no harm in copying. Is there? Not when there is a test, of course. Copying, maganda sana kung nagkopya ka pero may minodify ka doon sa kinopya mo. You made a better thing out of the thing that you have copied. Then, you can classify that as creation also. You refine something that you have seen. You have seen a product and you see, I can do better than that. I'm going to refine that. That is still creation. Okay, so we have to bring the students' skill up to this level. Cognitive process dimensions. You have to have a mastery of this because we are moving into creation of objectives. Okay. If there is what we call cognitive dimension, there is also what we call affective dimension. Krathwohl's taxonomy for affective domain has 5 levels. Sa cognition, meron tayong 6. Sa affective, according to Krathwohl, meron tayong 5. The lowest level is what we call receiving. This is the lowest level of internalization. Ano ibig sabihin natin ng internalization? Inilagay natin sa kaloob-looban. Ginawa nating attitude para makita sa behavior natin. So the lowest level of internalization is that of showing an awareness of or being willing to receive other information or stimuli. Okay. You want to get a CPT diploma because you are aware that it's going to prepare you for a LET. You are aware. Therefore, ano ang response mo? Aware ka na kailangan mo. Ano ang response mo? Aware na kailangan. Anong response mo? Makikinig ka, di ba? So, a step beyond the passive reception of information, aware ka. It's only at the lowest level. Kinakailangan meron kang gawin about that awareness. So, in response to your being aware that this course is important to let you pass the exam, you do either listen or you acquire written materials about the lecture. So that is a step going beyond receiving. You listen is another response. No? You ask question, it's another response. So you do something about your awareness of the importance of the course to LET, passing the LET. Now, beyond responding is what we call valuing. All right. At this level, the individual has begun to internalize the attitude, value, or interest. Internalize, so that he or she expresses an interest in the commitment to activities or positions. A person at this level might demonstrate a commitment by choosing an activity when given a free choice. All right. So you value the course. What are some indicators that you value the course? An indicator could be you do what is expected of you. Ano yung expectation sa'yo? Gumawa ka ng exercises. Gumawa ka ng assignment. Ipa-download mo yung pinapa-download sa'yo. Mga ano yan, indicators na you really value the course. Because yung ida-download mo na curriculum ay makakatulong sa'yo to formulate whatever it is that you will do later on. Okay? So makikita nyo, mga dearest, na kabit-kabit ito, starting from receiving or responding positively and then valuing. You value the course. That's why on the schedule natin ay, alam nyo, dapat 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Kaya lang late na tayo kanina. So magi-start kayo dapat. Do you have to be religious about this? Kasi ang start natin dapat 10 to 12 noon. No? Sa August 15. To be followed by 3 to 5 p.m. kung regular sana. No? Ngayon, dahil ito po ay ibibigay sa inyo, bibigay ko ito sa inyo sa USB o kaya ano nga ang kumuha kayo ng USB o ibibigay ito sa inyo sa YouTube. Pwede ito sa YouTube. No? Bibigay ito sa inyo through whatever means. No? You will have a copy of this lecture. So, sasabihin nyo siguro, hindi na lang ako makinig. Total, makakakuha naman ako ng kopya. You will note that there are insertions that I have. sa mga copy, I mean sa aking pag-lecture. So, dapat sana nakikinig kayo. But that is your choice. If you value the course, then you will listen. And you will do whatever is required of you to get a good grade. Mahalaga ba ang good grade? Of course it is. Because it's going to appear in your transcript of record. Ako man, mag-evaluate ako ng kukunin ko bilang magiging isang guro sa eskwelahan ko, titingnan ko ang transcript ninyo. Mahalaga ang grades. No? Okay. Organization. At this level, individuals start to integrate personal beliefs and attitudes and to establish a hierarchy. They begin to demonstrate priorities and involve conflicts between two or more of their values, belief, or commitments. Okay. Natutunan ninyo doon sa Code of Ethics na ang teacher po pala ay dapat prompt in going to school. Dapat pala ang teacher ay 15 minutes before the time ay nasa eskwelahan na. Ginagawa yung dapat ayusin sa loob. Alright. Mahalaga yung pagkaguro mo. Kaya yung lahat ng mga attitudes na dapat naandyan sa'yo ay ginagawa mo. So, prompt in going to school. In going to school. Para prompt ka, anong gagawin mo? Magigising ka ng umaga, ihahanda mo na ang mga dadalhin mo para hindi ka here and there, naghahanap ng dadalhin mo, nakahanda na yung sasakyan mo, sasakay ka ng tricycle, sasakay ka ng jeep, alam mo na madalang ang daan ng tricycle, so mag-aabang ka doon 1 hour before. So in other words, lahat ng ginagawa mo na ito ay naka-anchor doon sa gusto mong mangyari. Na ano yon? Ako ay dapat nasa loob ng eskwelahan 15 minutes before the time. So lahat ng gagawin mo ay naka-organize na so that in the end, you are at school before 15 minutes before the time. Maliwanag po, organization. Alright, let's go to characterization. At this level, the attitudes, beliefs, and values have become so internalized that they become a way of life. Others can see the commitment of a person without being told because of the consistent choices and actions of the individual. It's very clear naman. Sisay ngayang maestra yan? Ay, si Mrs. Jenkins ngaya? Ay, si Mrs. Jenkins, permi iyan prompt, di iyan nalilate. Ano na? Naka-attach na sa'yo ang punctuality as a character. So, characterization, naging character mo na. Naka-attach na yon sa'yo. Sisay ngayang Uwan. Ay, sus ko ngayon si Uwan na yan. O, tikuno na yan. Okay. Naka-attach na itong Hindi ka lamang, you cannot rely on one kasi hindi dependable ang sinasabi niya, okay? Character niya na yon. Kasi ang way of life niya points to that character. Ang character mo ay ang the way. Your character is your way of life. The way you live your life is your character. It spells out your character. You cannot say that you are this and you do something else, Wala kang integridad. Ang taong may integridad, mga dearest ko, eto po, ang taong nagsasabi na meron siyang integridad ay yung kaisipan niya, yung gawa niya ay integrated. Integrity. Kung ano ang sinasabi niya, yun ang ginagawa niya. May nakakita man o hindi, yun ang ginagawa niya. Yun ang character niya. If I ask you now, ladies and gentlemen, if I ask you now, what is the character you are known for sa neighborhood mo? Okay, that's for you to answer. Ikaw yon. And there are many attributes probably that you have that form your character as a person. Internalization is a long-term growth that requires measurement over time. Assessment of behaviors in the affective domain cannot be performed with traditional tools. Kaya nga, meron po tayong tinatawag na alternative. Hindi po ito mamimeasure ng paper and pencil test. Kasi kung mahusay ang comprehension mo, magbibigay ka ng paper and pencil test, mahusay ang comprehension mo, you can always fake your answer. You can get a perfect score and yet, no? Hindi yon ang character mo. O, maliwanag po. So, character, internalization of character, is a long-term. Maaring umalis ka na sa eskwela na yan, hindi mo pa na-develop ang character na punctuality or value na punctuality. No? Okay? So, Krathwohl's taxonomy starts with, ano po ang una? Awareness, receiving, valuing, organization, characterization, internalization. Ay, anim pala. Katulad din ng cognitive, according to Krathwohl. Alright?